The prairie wind swept across the desolate Wyoming landscape as Katherine O'Malley knelt before the weathered wooden cross that marked her husband's grave, her black mourning dress billowing around her like a dark cloud. She had been coming to this hilltop every Sunday for the past 6 months, ever since influenza had claimed Thomas, leaving her alone with their struggling ranch and mountains of debt in the spring of 1877. "Lord," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustle of the tall grass, "I don't know how much longer I can hold on. The bank's threatening to take everything. I need help." Her slender fingers traced the rough-hewn cross, tears streaming down her face. "I need a miracle." She was so absorbed in her grief that she didn't hear the approach of hoofbeats until they were nearly upon her. Katherine turned, startled, as a tall figure on horseback crested the hill. The setting sun silhouetted him dramatically broad-shouldered, with a worn Stetson pulled low over his eyes. "Beggin' your pardon, madam," the stranger said, his voice deep and gentle as he dismounted with fluid grace. "I didn't mean to intrude on your prayers." He removed his hat, revealing wavy dark hair and kind eyes. "Though if you don't mind my saying, it looks like your prayer just arrived on horseback." Katherine hastily wiped her tears, embarrassment flushing her cheeks. "I don't understand." The cowboy stepped closer, respectfully keeping a proper distance. "Name's Isaac Xavier, madam. I've been riding for 2 weeks looking for work. If you're in need of help, I'm offering my services." Katherine studied him warily. At perhaps 30, he was lean but strong-looking, with a face weathered by sun and wind. His clothes were dusty but well-kept, and though he wore a gun at his hip like most men in these parts, there was nothing threatening about his demeanor. "I'm Katherine O'Malley," she replied cautiously. "And while I appreciate the offer, Mr. Xavier, I couldn't possibly afford to hire help." Isaac nodded thoughtfully. "That's a fair point, Mrs. O'Malley, but here's my proposition. I need a place to stay for the winter. You provide room and board and I'll work your ranch. Come spring, we can discuss proper wages if you're satisfied with my work." Katherine hesitated. Taking in a stranger seemed foolhardy, but the alternative was losing everything. She glanced back at Thomas's grave. "My husband would think me mad for considering this," she murmured. "With all respect, madam, I reckon a good husband would want you to survive." Isaac's gaze was steady. "I can give you references. Work the Johnsons spread near Cheyenne for 3 years before they sold out." The mention of the well-known ranch eased her concern slightly. "I have a small cabin for hands. It's not much, but it's shelter." "That's more than I had this morning," Isaac replied with a small smile. Katherine stood, brushing soil from her skirt. "I warn you, Mr. Xavier, the work is hard and the rewards few. The O'Malley Ranch has seen better days. Most things worth saving have, madam." They rode back to the ranch in the fading light, Katherine on her aging mare and Isaac on his impressive buckskin gelding. The main house came into view first, a modest 2-story structure that had once been white, but was now weathered to a soft gray. Beyond it stood a barn in need of repair, corrals, and a small bunkhouse. A few dozen cattle grazed in the distance. "It's not much," Katherine said apologetically, "but it was home." "Still is," Isaac corrected gently, "and it could be prosperous again with some work." Katherine showed him to the bunkhouse, a simple 1-room cabin with a stove, bed, and table. "I'll bring some supper over once you're settled." True to her word, she returned with a pot of stew and freshly baked bread. They ate together at the small table, Katherine explaining the ranch's situation. "Thomas and I had dreams of building something special here," she said, staring into her bowl. 5 years we worked this land. Then last winter we lost half our cattle to the cold. Thomas worked himself to exhaustion trying to save them. That's when he got sick." She paused. "The bank's given me until spring to make payment or they'll foreclose." Isaac listened intently. "How many head do you have left?" 38. "Not enough to make a proper profit." "Maybe not," Isaac agreed, "but enough to build on if we're smart. The barn needs fixing before winter sets in proper, roof's looking precarious. After that, we should check your fencing. Come spring, we can talk about increasing the herd." Katherine studied him curiously. You speak as if you'll still be here in spring. Isaac met her gaze. Madam, I don't start something I don't intend to finish. The following weeks proved Isaac to be a man of his word. He rose before dawn each day, repairing the barn, mending fences, and tending to the cattle. Katherine found herself working alongside him, her days taking on new purpose. Though grief still clung to her like a shadow, it began to loosen its grip as the routine of hard work filled her hours. By November, the ranch looked markedly improved. The barn sported a new roof, the corrals stood sturdy against the increasing winds, and the cattle were healthier than they'd been in years thanks to Isaac's knowledgeable care. One evening, as the first snow began to fall, Katherine invited Isaac to supper in the main house. She'd prepared a hearty meal of roast beef, potatoes, and apple pie, the first proper feast she'd made since Thomas died. To thank you, she explained as she ushered him in from the cold. The ranch hasn't looked this good in years. Isaac removed his hat, looking somewhat uncomfortable in the cozy domestic setting. Just doing what needed doing, Mrs. O'Malley. Katherine, she corrected softly. After all these months of working side by side, I think we can dispense with formalities. Isaac's smile was warm. Katherine, then? They ate by lamplight, discussing plans for the ranch. Isaac had ideas about breeding the cattle to improve the stock, and Katherine found herself excited about the future for the first time in months. Tell me about yourself, Isaac, she said as they lingered over coffee. You know my story, but I know precious little about you. Isaac's expression grew distant. Not much to tell. Born in Missouri, father was a farmer until the war took him. Mother raised me and my sister best she could. I headed west at 17, worked ranches from Texas to Montana. He paused. Never stayed anywhere too long. And now, Katherine asked softly, his eyes met hers. Now I'm here. The winter proved harsh, with blizzards that howled across the plains and temperatures that dropped well below freezing, but the O'Malley ranch endured. Isaac had insulated the barn and ensured the cattle had sheltered feeding areas. He and Katherine worked together daily, developing a rhythm and understanding that required few words. On Christmas Day, Katherine invited Isaac for dinner again. She decorated the house with pine boughs and red ribbons and prepared a feast that belied their modest circumstances. I have something for you, she said shyly after their meal, handing him a package wrapped in brown paper. Isaac looked genuinely surprised. Katherine, you shouldn't have spent money on. I didn't, she assured him. Open it. Inside was a hand-knitted scarf of deep blue wool. I made it during the evenings, she explained. Wyoming winters are no joke. Isaac ran his fingers over the soft wool. Thank you. It's been a long time since anyone. He cleared his throat. I have something for you too. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small wooden figurine, a horse carved with remarkable detail. It's beautiful, Katherine whispered, admiring the craftsmanship. When did you find time? Those long evenings in the bunkhouse, he explained with a small smile. Keeps the hands busy and the mind quiet. As winter deepened, so did their connection. Isaac began taking his evening meals in the main house regularly. They would talk long into the night about books they'd read, places they'd seen, dreams they'd harbored. Katherine found herself laughing again, something she'd thought impossible after Thomas died. One particularly bitter January night, a fierce blizzard descended without warning. Isaac had gone to check on a pregnant heifer in the far pasture and hadn't returned. As darkness fell and the storm intensified, Katherine grew frantic. Wrapping herself in her heaviest coat, she lit a lantern and fought her way through the blinding snow toward the pasture. The wind cut like knives, and twice she nearly lost her way. Finally, she spotted a faint glow in the distance. Isaac's lantern. She found him in the old line shack, huddled with a newborn calf. His horse stood in the small attached lean-to, while the heifer lay exhausted but alive on a bed of straw. Katherine, Isaac exclaimed when she stumbled through the door, you shouldn't be out in this. Neither should you, she retorted, relief making her voice sharp. When you didn't return. I couldn't leave them, he explained, gesturing to the animals. The calf came early and they wouldn't have survived the trek back. Katherine removed her snow-covered coat and knelt beside the tiny calf. Is it a heifer or a bull? Heifer, Isaac replied with a smile. Strong little thing just like her owner. Their eyes met and something shifted between them. In the small, lamp-lit shack, with the storm howling outside, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. We'll have to wait out the storm, Isaac said, breaking the moment. It's too dangerous to try to make it back tonight. They made the best of their situation. Isaac had emergency supplies in the shack: jerky, coffee, and blankets. They tended to the animals and then settled by the small stove, sharing the limited provisions. I've been meaning to ask, Katherine said as they sipped hot coffee, why did you really stop that day, at the cemetery? Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Truth, she nodded. I was following the road to Laramie, but something told me to take that hill path instead. Never been one for signs or omens, but, he shrugged. When I saw you there praying by that cross, something just felt right, like I was exactly where I needed to be. Katherine's heart quickened. And now, after months of backbreaking work for room and board. Now I'm even more certain, he said quietly. The blizzard trapped them in the lined shack for 2 days. They cared for the heifer and her calf, rationed their supplies, and talked more openly than ever before. Isaac spoke of the loneliness of his wandering life, and Katherine shared her fears about the future. I loved Thomas, she admitted on the second night. But even before he died, I was lonely. He was a good man, but he lived in his head, always planning, rarely present. Isaac nodded thoughtfully. Some men don't know how to treasure what's right in front of them. When they finally returned to the ranch, something had changed between them, a new awareness, a tentative possibility. Yet both were careful, respectful of the boundaries between them. Katherine was, after all, still a widow in mourning, and Isaac her employee. As February turned to March, the first signs of spring appeared. New calves dotted the pastures, and green shoots pushed through the soil in Katherine's vegetable garden. The ranch was coming back to life, and so was she. One Sunday, Katherine prepared for her weekly visit to Thomas's grave. To her surprise, Isaac asked if he might accompany her. I'd like to pay my respects, he said simply. They rode together to the hilltop cemetery. Katherine placed fresh flowers on the grave while Isaac stood respectfully back. When she finished her prayers, he stepped forward and removed his hat. I never met you, Mr. O'Malley, he said quietly, but you chose well when you married Katherine. I promise you, sir, I'm doing everything I can to help her keep what you built together. Katherine's throat tightened with emotion. Thank you, she whispered as they walked back to their horses. That would have meant a lot to him. Isaac helped her mount, his hands strong and steady at her waist. Katherine, he said, not releasing her immediately, I need to tell you something. Her heart raced at the seriousness in his tone. What is it? I received a letter yesterday from a rancher near Sheridan. He's offering me a foreman position starting in April. Good wages, a house of my own. Katherine felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her. Oh, that's wonderful news, she managed, though her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Isaac's hand still rested lightly at her waist. I haven't accepted. But you should, she said automatically. It's a fine opportunity. Maybe, but there's something keeping me here. His eyes held hers. Someone? Katherine couldn't breathe. Isaac, you don't need to say anything, he assured her quickly. I know it's too soon. I know your heart still belongs to Thomas. I just wanted you to know why I'm staying if you'll have me. And if I'm not ready, she asked softly. Then I'm still staying, he replied simply. This ranch needs me. You need a friend. That's enough for now. The ride back was quiet, each lost in thought. As they approached the ranch, Katherine broke the silence. My father once told me that life rarely gives second chances, she said. When Thomas died, I thought my chance at happiness died with him. I never imagined. Isaac waited, patient as always. I'm not ready for promises, Katherine continued carefully, but I am ready to look forward instead of back. His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. That's all anyone can ask. April brought bank payment day. Katherine had been setting aside every penny, but she was still short. As she prepared to ride into town to face the banker, Isaac appeared with a small leather pouch. "My savings," he explained, placing it in her hands. "It should cover what you're missing." Katherine stared at the pouch in shock. "Isaac, I can't take your money." "It's an investment," he countered. "In the ranch in the future, I'll pay you back," she insisted. "Every cent," he smiled. "I know you will." The banker was visibly disappointed when Katherine counted out the full payment. He had clearly been anticipating foreclosure. "Well, Mrs. O'Malley," he said grudgingly, "you've bought yourself another year, but the next payment will be larger." "The ranch is doing better, Mr. Peterson," she replied confidently. "We'll be ready." As spring bloomed fully across the Wyoming plains, so did the tentative relationship between Katherine and Isaac. They worked side by side during the day and often spent evenings on the porch, watching the sunset and planning improvements to the ranch. In May, Katherine decided to attend the town dance, her first social outing since Thomas's death. When she appeared on the porch in a simple blue dress, her copper hair arranged in soft curls, Isaac's expression made her blush. "You look beautiful, Katherine," he said sincerely. The dance was held in the town hall, decorated with spring flowers and lit by dozens of lanterns. When they entered, conversation momentarily halted as people took in the widow O'Malley and her handsome companion. "Everyone's staring," Katherine whispered nervously. "Can you blame them?" Isaac replied, guiding her with a gentle hand at the small of her back. "You're the prettiest woman here." They danced together, Katherine initially stiff and self-conscious, then gradually relaxing as Isaac's steady presence calmed her nerves. His hand was warm against hers, his steps sure and confident. "I haven't danced in years," she admitted. "You're a natural," he assured her. "Like everything else you do." As the evening progressed, they stepped outside for air. The stars blazed overhead in the clear spring sky, and the soft music from the hall drifted out to them. "I've been thinking," Isaac said as they walked slowly around the town square, "about the ranch's future." "Oh," Katherine glanced up at him, "we should diversify, maybe add some horses. Good quarter horses are always in demand, and that south pasture would be perfect for them." Katherine smiled at his use of "we," but didn't comment on it. "That's a significant investment." "Yes, but a sound one." "I know horses, Katherine. We could build something special." "I trust your judgment," she said simply. Isaac stopped walking and turned to face her. "Do you, really?" She met his gaze steadily. "Yes, in everything." His hand reached out to gently touch her cheek. "Katherine, I know it hasn't been a full year since Thomas passed. I know people will talk, but I need to ask." "Yes," she interrupted softly. Isaac blinked. "I haven't asked the question yet." Katherine smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in more than a year. "The answer is still yes. Whether you're asking to stay permanently or to court me properly, or," she took a deep breath, "or anything else." Isaac's face broke into a radiant smile. He took both her hands in his. "Katherine O'Malley, I've loved you since I saw you praying by that cross. I didn't know it then, but looking back, that's when it started. I want to build a life with you on this ranch, with horses and cattle, and maybe someday." He hesitated. "Children?" she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. His eyes shone in the moonlight. "A family, yes." Katherine thought of Thomas, of the dreams they'd shared and the life cut short. She would always love him, always honor his memory. But standing before her was a future she never expected, a second chance at happiness. "It won't be easy," she warned. "The ranch is still struggling. People will gossip about how quickly I've moved on." Isaac squeezed her hands. "Nothing worth having comes easy, and as for gossip, let them talk. We know what's in our hearts." In the distance, the church bell tolled 9. Katherine smiled at the familiar sound, remembering how she'd knelt before Thomas's cross all those months ago, praying for help. "You were right, you know," she said. "That first day." "About what?" "My prayer really did arrive on horseback." Isaac gently drew her into his arms. "And I've thanked God every day since for guiding me up that hill." Their first kiss was gentle, a promise of the life they would build together. When they returned to the dance, walking hand in hand, the whispers started immediately. Katherine found she didn't care. For the first time since Thomas's death, she felt completely alive. Summer brought new life to the O'Malley ranch. With careful management and Isaac's expertise, they acquired 4 quality breeding mares and a stallion, starting their horse operation. The cattle herd was growing and Katherine's vegetable garden flourished. In July, Isaac officially proposed, offering Katherine a simple gold band with a small pearl. "It was my mother's," he explained. "She'd be proud to know you're wearing it." They were married in August 1878 in a small ceremony on the ranch. Katherine wore a cream-colored dress she'd sewn herself, with wildflowers in her hair. Isaac stood tall and proud in a new suit, his dark hair trimmed and his face clean-shaven for the occasion. The local pastor performed the ceremony under the old oak tree where, 15 months earlier, Katherine had stood alone watching her first husband's casket being lowered into the ground. Now, surrounded by the few friends they'd invited, she began a new chapter. "I promise to cherish every day with you," Isaac vowed. "To build our ranch, our home, our family with these hands." Katherine's voice was steady as she replied, "I promise to walk beside you through whatever comes, to never take for granted this second chance we've been given." They celebrated with a feast laid out on tables in the yard. As the sun set, casting golden light across the land that was now truly theirs together, Isaac led Katherine in a dance while their guests clapped in rhythm. "Mrs. Xavier," he murmured against her ear, "how does it sound?" Katherine smiled up at her new husband, like a prayer answered. Later that night, as they stood on the porch of what was now their home, Isaac pulled Katherine close. "I've been saving something to tell you," he said. "Remember that heifer and calf from the blizzard?" Katherine nodded. "Well, I've been watching that calf grow. She's special strong bloodlines, perfect conformation. I think she's the beginning of something important for our herd." "What will we call her?" Katherine asked. Isaac smiled. "I was thinking second chance." Katherine rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Perfect," she whispered. As years passed, the Xavier Ranch prospered. Their horse breeding operation became known throughout the territory for quality quarter horses, and their cattle herd grew to impressive numbers. They added onto the house to accommodate their growing family, first a son, Thomas Isaac, born in 1879, and then twin daughters, Elizabeth and Sarah, in 1881. Every Sunday, weather permitting, the family would visit Thomas O'Malley's grave. Katherine would place fresh flowers, and Isaac would stand respectfully with the children, teaching them about the good man who had loved their mother first. "Your father was right to trust his instincts that day," Thomas would tell Isaac Jr., when he was old enough to understand. "Sometimes the answer to a prayer comes in unexpected ways." And on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Katherine and Isaac would sit on the porch and watch the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in brilliant colors, their hands intertwined, grateful for the chance meeting on a lonely hilltop that had changed both their lives forever. In 1897, on the 20th anniversary of their meeting, Isaac surprised Katherine with a new wooden cross for Thomas's grave, beautifully carved and more enduring than the weathered original. "He brought us together," Isaac said simply. "It's right to honor him." Katherine, her copper hair now streaked with silver, squeezed her husband's hand. "From grief came joy," she murmured. "Who could have imagined?" "I did," Isaac replied with a gentle smile. "The moment I saw you kneeling there, I knew my wandering days were over. I'd found my home." And as they stood together, watching their grandchildren play in the fields of the prosperous ranch they'd built together, Katherine offered a silent prayer of gratitude for unanswered prayers and unexpected blessings for the cowboy who had arrived on horseback exactly when she needed him most.